Welcome to Chemistry with Dr. Z. I'm Dr. Z, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the electronic structure and the electronic configuration. This is part of the GCSE chemistry for both AQA and also for the Edexcel IGCSE. So we talked about the nucleus and the electronic structure. We talked about the nucleus and the electron and the different isotopes, how the number of neutrons differ. So now let's focus more on the electrons. So the we know now from the nuclear model or the atom model that an atom has a nucleus at the center where most of the mass of the atom is concentrated in that center, and that electrons will orbit the nucleus in certain shells, as Niels Bohr has discovered or described in his model. So electrons will occupy certain shells around the nucleus and the atom. And these shells have different energies. So the closer the shell to the nucleus, so this is the nucleus here, this is the electronic structure of an atom, which is K, which is potassium. So K is potassium. So the closer the shell to the nucleus, the lower the energy of that shell. So each energy level has a different, or each shell, we call them energy level. Each shell has a different energy. What happens, as you can see, there are certain number of electrons in each shell. So the lowest energy shell must be filled first before electrons can actually fill the following energy shell. So what we should know as well is that each energy level or each shell has a maximum capacity of electrons. So it cannot take more than a certain number of electrons. In your specification, you should know the first energy shells and how many electrons they actually can have. So the first energy shell can have a maximum of 2 electrons. The second energy shell, maximum of 8 electrons. Third energy shell has a maximum of 8 electrons. So any shell must be completely full before the electrons can start to fill the next energy level. So if you have two energy levels, if you have 3 electrons, first energy shell must have 2 electrons, and then the third, before the third electron can fill the following one or can start to occupy the second shell. All atoms in the periodic tables, with exception of the noble gases, have incomplete outer shell. So the last shell that has electron is called the outer shell. So this is the outer shell. Usually atoms have incomplete outer shell, so it has less than its maximum capacity of electrons. All the inner shells are complete, are full. The only exception from this rule is the noble gases. Noble gases have complete outer shell of electrons. This is why they are called noble gases. Because actually what happens is that when an atom has a complete outer shell, then that means it's stable. It will not react. All atoms want to reach that stability and reach that fullness of their outer shell of electrons. So this is why different atoms can either gain or lose electrons, and this is why they have this reactivity, because they gain and lose electrons. As they do so, they try to reach the full or complete outer shell of electrons. We're going to talk about that later when we talk about the different ions. So let's have an example how to work out the electronic structure of any atom. So if you are given a certain atom, then you might be asked to figure out or work out the electronic structure. Electronic structure here means, which we refer to as the configuration. It's the distribution of the electrons in different electron shells. So you can easily work out the electronic configuration or electronic structure of the first 20 elements in the periodic table by following the electron shell rules. So let's have some examples. So what is the electronic structure of carbon? Looking at the periodic table, you can find that carbon has an atomic number of 6. Atomic number of 6 means it has 6 protons and 6 electrons. And we are talking here about the electronic structure, so we are only talking about the electrons here. So for carbon, the electronic structure, first we said that the first shell must be completed first or must be filled first. So the first shell has a maximum capacity of 2 electrons. So we have 2 electrons in the first electronic shell or in the first energy shell, and that leaves us with 4 extra electrons. The remaining 4 electrons will actually occupy the second shell or the second energy level. So the electronic structure or the configuration of carbon is 2, 4. So let's have another example. So magnesium, Mg. Magnesium has a total of 12 electrons. The atomic number of magnesium is 12, means 12 protons, 12 electrons. So let's apply the same rule. So the electron shell rule here states that for magnesium, the first electron shell must be filled first. So it has a maximum capacity of 2 electrons. So if you take 2 out of the 12, you have still 10 more electrons. So the second electron shell will have a maximum capacity of 8. So 8 out of the remaining 10 will be in the second. And then we have 2 more, so they will occupy the third shell or the third energy level. So the electronic structure or electronic configuration of magnesium is 2, 8, 2. You can apply the same principle for any atom from the periodic table. You just have to follow the rule, which is 2, 8, 8, and so on. So the maximum capacity of the first 2, second 8, third 8, and so on.